William Cade adjusted the collar of his uniform as he entered Lab Module 7. The doors hissed shut behind him, sealing him into the sterile glow of alien tech lighting and the faint scent of ionized air. Somewhere behind a translucent energy screen, Ruby Varen stood hunched over a control console, her shimmering rose-gold skin catching the lab's soft blue hue with every move. "You called for a systems tech?" he asked, a half-smirk tugging at his lips. "Or did you just want an excuse to see me again?" Ruby straightened slowly, her long hair swaying down her back like flowing silver ink. Her pale eyes flicked toward him, unreadable but not unkind. "I need your help recalibrating the hormonal regulator," she said, her voice calm but clipped. "It's emitting a frequency not consistent with expected parameters." William strolled closer, hands behind his back, trying not to look too intrigued. The device on the bench resembled a crystalline orb floating above a bronze base, its core pulsing faintly. "What's it supposed to do?" he asked. "Regulate pheromonal emissions. In Traxian subjects during stress therapy," she replied, tapping the orb's surface gently. "It's used to stabilize bonding instincts, normally." He leaned closer, inspecting the flickering interface etched with unfamiliar glyphs. "Doesn't look that complicated," he muttered, reaching out. "Don't touch that," Ruby snapped, eyes widening. Too late. William's fingers brushed the glowing panel just as she reached out to stop him. A soft chime echoed through the lab, and the orb surged with golden light. A misty vapor burst outward, enveloping Ruby in a warm, swirling cloud. She froze. He backed up instinctively, coughing once. "Okay. That didn't look like nothing. Are you all right?" Ruby didn't answer right away. Her pupils dilated, her posture stiffened. Then she blinked, as if shaking off a daze, and looked directly at him. No, into him. Her skin shimmered brighter, pulsing softly along her neck and collarbone. "William," she whispered, touching her own chest as if something inside had shifted. "You activated imprinting mist. You shouldn't have. Only a—" She trailed off, cheeks darkening with color. "Only a what?" he asked, confused but oddly concerned. "A chosen mate," she whispered, barely audible. Silence lingered between them, thick and strange. William ran a hand through his hair. "So you're saying, I just accidentally made myself your alien boyfriend?" Ruby turned away quickly, arms crossing over her chest. "It's not a romantic system. It's biological, instinctual. You've triggered a dormant mechanism tied to pair bonding receptors. My body will start adapting." "To what? Me?" He raised his eyebrows, more amused than alarmed. She shot him a sharp look. "This isn't funny. My species doesn't do casual bonds. This effect intensifies quickly and is hard to reverse after the first phase." William took a breath and leaned on the console. "Okay, so how long until this first phase solidifies?" "Hours, maybe less," she said, rubbing her arms. "I can already feel the symptoms. Temperature sensitivity, proximity craving, scent recognition." "Scent recognition?" he repeated, incredulous. She hesitated, then nodded. "I can only smell you now." His eyes widened. "Well, that's awkwardly flattering." She didn't smile. Instead, she took a step back, visibly flustered, her skin glowing a little more than before. Suddenly, the station's AI voice crackled over the intercom. "Imprint activation detected. Lab Module 7 is now under Containment Protocol 6. Doors locked. Exit disabled until biological data is stable." Ruby's face paled. 12-hour lockdown." William gave her a sheepish look. "So, just you and me?" "Don't say it like that," she muttered, eyes fixed on the orb still humming faintly. "Between them. I'll fix it," he said, moving toward the panel again. She caught his wrist. "Please, no more touching until we understand what it's doing." He paused, surprised by the warmth of her hand. She let go quickly, cheeks deepening in color again. "Got it," he said quietly. No more accidental mating rituals. She exhaled slowly, not looking at him. We need to stabilize the hormone signature. If we don't, the bond will root deeper. He took a step back, giving her space. Then let's fix it before you end up scent imprinted on me forever. She looked up at him, and for a heartbeat, something flickered between them. Uncertainty, frustration, and a trace of something else neither of them wanted to name yet. Ruby paced the length of the lab, her footsteps light, but hurried. Her arms folded tightly across her chest, as if pressure alone could suppress whatever reactions her body was going through. William leaned against a terminal, trying not to look too amused, though his brow carried a subtle line of concern. "Any change?" he asked, watching her as she stopped abruptly near a console and inhaled sharply. "It's intensifying," she admitted, voice low and almost breathless. "I can feel every molecule in the air. My skin reacts to fluctuations in temperature, especially near you." "Must be my natural charm," he joked, hoping levity might ease her tension. She shot him a glance that bordered on irritation but melted quickly into discomfort. "Your scent is like magnetic. My system is struggling to regulate pheromone feedback. So I'm basically walking pheromone bait now," he said, arching a brow. Her cheeks flushed again and she turned away. "Mocking this won't help. I need focus, not distraction." "Hey," William said, voice softening. "I'm not trying to make this worse. Just trying to keep the air light while we figure it out." "I know," she muttered, shoulders slumping slightly. But the mist wasn't just a trigger. It unlocked something my body wasn't prepared for. William took a step toward her, cautious. "Is it painful?" She shook her head. "Not pain. Overstimulation. My species isn't designed for abrupt bonding. It usually happens gradually. Rituals, controlled exposure. She hesitated. "You bypassed all of that with one press." "I have a gift," he said dryly. Ruby didn't laugh, but the corner of her mouth twitched. She leaned against the edge of the lab bench, breathing slowly, controlling herself with visible effort. The glowing patterns on her neck and forearms pulsed faintly, delicate and rhythmic. He noticed her hands trembling. "Do you want to sit down?" She hesitated, then nodded. He pulled a chair over, and she sank into it with grace but clear fatigue. "I just need a moment. This reaction is cascading faster than I expected." William crouched beside her, watching her face. "What can I do to help?" Ruby looked at him, and for once, the analytical detachment in her eyes gave way to something more raw. "You're already doing too much just by being here. My senses are hyper-targeted. I can feel your breath when you speak. My pulse spikes when you move closer. My body is beginning to anticipate your presence like we've already been bonded for cycles." He blinked. "That's kind of flattering. And also mildly terrifying." She gave him a look of mixed frustration and faint embarrassment. "If this isn't reversed soon, the imprint solidifies. Permanently. I'll be biologically tuned to you. Your presence will be calming. Your absence, destabilizing." William stood slowly, exhaling. "That sounds intense." "It is. It's sacred to my kind. Not easily broken. We don't bond lightly." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "And we certainly don't bond by accident." He nodded, understanding the weight of her words now. This wasn't just a weird sci-fi incident. This was deep-rooted, irreversible biology. "Well," he said after a pause, "then let's figure it out before the countdown hits 0. She gestured to the control panel. The AI logged the event. It may have recorded biofeedback. We can try tracking the hormonal shift pattern. William slid into the adjacent chair and pulled up the system logs. He navigated the interface with practiced ease. "Looks like the event signature's here. Elevated neurochemical levels, heart rate spikes, something called prime scent fixation. That's the core marker, Ruby said, leaning forward. Her shoulder brushed his. She flinched, but didn't pull away. That confirms it. My system has imprinted you as a biological constant. So I'm your, what, anchor? Essentially. He swallowed, then tried to focus on the data. Okay, then maybe we can use that signal as a target for reversal. If the machine can spike it, maybe it can neutralize it. Possibly, she murmured, scanning the glyphs with him. Suddenly, the overhead lights dimmed. The lab's emergency protocol engaged with a chime. System anomaly detected, the AI droned. Subject Ruby Varen experiencing unstable hormonal cascade. Initiating containment alert. Ruby shot upright. No. If containment locks activate, they'll sedate me. William stood as well, eyes narrowing. Over my dead body. He sprinted to the wall interface, overriding protocol with his clearance code. Command priority, disable automatic sedative dispersal, authorization CADE W4387. The system paused, then responded. Override accepted. Manual monitoring. Engaged. Ruby stared at him. Why would you do that? Because you don't need to be drugged into a coma for something I caused, he said firmly. And because I trust you'll manage it. Something in her expression cracked. The stern lines softened, and her eyes held gratitude, and something gentler. Thank you, she said, voice barely above a whisper. I've got your back, he replied. As he turned back to the console, he didn't notice the way her gaze lingered on him. Not just with biological instinct, but something new. Something growing. The glow on her skin deepened. A quiet, unfamiliar warmth settled in her chest. Maybe it wasn't just the pheromones, maybe it was him. The silence in the lab stretched thin, laced with anticipation, neither of them dared acknowledge out loud. The containment clock ticked down on the main screen, showing 10 hours and 17 minutes remaining. Ruby's breathing had slowed, though her glowing skin still pulsed gently, a visual whisper of her elevated state. William hovered near the data terminal, reading through the alien glyphs again, trying to find a pattern. If I could just translate this column, he muttered, squinting at the swirling script. Ruby moved beside him, shoulder nearly brushing his. Those are chemical pathway indicators. They correspond to hormonal feedback loops. That one represents scent memory encoding. The one you're pointing at tracks proximity cravings. He raised an eyebrow. You have a built-in desire to be close to me. Don't flatter yourself, she said, but her tone had lost its bite. It's physiological, not romantic. Yet. She turned her head sharply, and their eyes locked. I'm kidding, he said quickly. Mostly. Ruby didn't respond. Her expression held wariness, but something else too, curiosity flickering beneath the surface. The kind of look that came from wanting answers she wasn't sure she wanted to hear. He exhaled and moved back to the workbench. I'm going to check the calibration settings. Maybe there's a manual release. She followed him, folding her hands behind her back to avoid brushing against him again. Her restraint was admirable, considering the subtle tremors still running through her body. It's strange, she said softly. The closer you are, the more stable I feel. It's like my pulse realigns to yours. But if you step away for too long, everything inside goes uneven. William turned toward her slowly. Then maybe I should stay close. That's not helpful, she replied, though she didn't step away. Her voice dropped. This isn't sustainable. It's dangerous to let it continue like this. He hesitated. What happens if we don't reverse it? She glanced down. My body will accept the bond as permanent, and that changes everything. Define everything. Ruby hesitated again, then met his gaze. You'll be the only one I respond to. No one else's touch, scent, or voice will matter. It's not just attraction. It's biological dependence. He absorbed her words without flinching. And how would that make you feel? She looked surprised by the question. I mean, he continued, if it wasn't an accident, if you had a choice, would it be so awful? Ruby swallowed hard. Her lips parted, then closed again. Her skin flushed, brighter than before, and for a second, she looked younger, almost vulnerable. I don't know, she admitted. A soft chime interrupted them. The console flashed. William moved toward it and read the alert. Power fluctuation in the environmental controls. The vent regulators just reset. Ruby frowned. That means temperature's about to shift. The air grew warmer almost immediately, humid, dense. Ruby's breathing quickened again. Your system reacts to heat, doesn't it? He asked, already knowing the answer. She nodded slowly. Elevated temperatures enhance scent activation. I'll become more reactive, more sensitive. Then let's get the backup fans running. He moved to the wall panel, but it flickered, offline before his fingers could reach the switch. No response, he muttered. Systems in lockdown override. Looks like the lab wants to cook us. Ruby leaned against the bench, her back arching slightly as she tried to catch a cooling breath. This isn't good. William grabbed a nearby utility box and pried it open, revealing the emergency ventilation control. Manual override, then. Give me a second. He worked quickly, splicing wires, rerouting power. Ruby watched him, biting her lower lip. The heat wasn't the only thing making her pulse race. Every movement he made, the flex of his forearms, the slight narrowing of his eyes when he concentrated, hit her senses like a drumbeat. She inhaled, and it hit her full force, his scent, raw, clean, human. With the faintest trace of coffee and metal and heat, she made a small, involuntary sound in the back of her throat. He turned his head. Are you okay? Ruby froze, mortified. Yes. He studied her, eyes narrowing. You're not okay. I'll be fine. No, you're not. She stepped back. Don't come closer. He paused. Ruby, if you need distance, I'll give it. But you're shaking. She closed her eyes, trying to center herself. You don't understand. If you touch me right now, I might... He stayed still, hands raised. I'm not touching, just talking. Her eyes opened slowly. There was fear in them. Desire, too, blooming against her will. I didn't ask for this, she whispered. Neither did I, he replied gently. But I'm here. I'm not leaving. She stared at him. The room felt too warm. Her skin buzzed with energy. Her mind screamed retreat, but her body leaned forward almost unconsciously. I don't want this to be some mistake I regret, she said, barely audible. William didn't move. Then we don't let it be. The tension between them thickened. Ruby took another step closer, her breath shallow. Her fingers hovered near his chest but didn't make contact. I feel like I'm on the edge of something I can't stop. Then don't stop, he said, voice quiet. Her fingers brushed his shirt, just barely. Her skin ignited with heat. His pulse matched hers. They stood there suspended in something more powerful than either expected, trapped not just by the lab, but by instinct, by curiosity, and the growing truth neither one wanted to name yet. The lab's dim emergency lighting cast long shadows across the walls, making the room feel smaller than it already was. The air hung thick, dense with heat and something more difficult to name, unspoken things, pulsing between them like a live current. Ruby's hand hovered in the space between them, her fingers still trembling from the brief contact. She pulled, back sharply, as if the connection had burned her. I shouldn't have touched you, she murmured. William's breath was steady, but his heart raced beneath his shirt. You didn't do anything wrong. Her gaze dropped, eyes flickering with conflict. You don't understand what that meant for me. In my culture, Physical contact during an active imprint amplifies the effect. It accelerates bonding on a neural level. Every touch writes something into me. He tilted his head slightly. You mean, like memory? Like instinct, she said, voice raw. You become part of my reflexes. My body starts to recognize you as the center of balance. Every heartbeat aligns with yours. And that, once locked in, doesn't go away. William exhaled slowly, trying to absorb the gravity of what she was telling him. So if this keeps going, it's permanent. She nodded, eyes fixed on a panel across the room. My species has no term for divorce. Our bonds are irreversible. We don't choose them. Lightly, there was silence for a moment. Not awkward, just heavy with realization. He moved to a nearby bench, sitting down and running a hand through his hair. And yet, here we are. Trapped by a machine neither of us fully understands, bonded by mistake, and stuck in a lab while the air gets thicker and your biology rewrites itself. Ruby gave a bitter laugh. Romantic, isn't it? It could be, he said, looking at her with quiet intensity. She froze. Don't joke about that. I'm not. She looked away quickly, turning her back to him as she pretended to study the diagnostic readouts. William stood and approached her cautiously, stopping at a respectful distance. Can I ask you something? If you must. If this hadn't happened, if the mist never released, would you have ever looked at me that way? She didn't respond for several seconds. The sound of the lab's internal hum filled the space between them. I didn't think it was possible, she admitted quietly. Your species is emotionally chaotic, loud, impulsive. I thought it would be dangerous to get close. And now? She turned slowly, meeting his gaze. Now I feel everything when you breathe. I hear your voice even when you're silent. My senses are so overwhelmed I can barely separate your heartbeat from mine. His throat tightened. That sounds terrifying. It is, she whispered. But it's not just fear anymore. He stepped a little closer, watching her carefully. What else is it? She didn't answer. Instead, her hands tightened around the edge of the console, knuckles pale. Ruby, he said softly, I don't want to be something you survive. If this becomes something lasting, it should be because you chose it, not because your biology left you no other path. She closed her eyes, letting the words wash over her. You keep saying things like that, and I keep feeling them like they're etched into my skin. Maybe they are, he said, but not because of science. They stood in silence, only the pulse of the environmental monitor breaking the stillness. Then a sharp chime pierced the air. Ruby's head snapped toward the control panel. Incoming signal. External override request. From who? William asked, already moving beside her. She tapped the display. Station authority. They've detected the hormonal spike. From my vitals. They think I'm compromised. Because of me, he muttered. No, she said quickly. Because of the device. They don't know about the imprint yet. But if they investigate too closely, they will. He stared at the screen, jaw tight. So what are they going to do? Send a medical unit. Possibly sedate and isolate me. For observation. William turned to her, eyes hard. That's not happening. We may not have a choice. He stepped between her and the terminal. If they come in here and pull you out, what happens to the bond? She hesitated. Separation during active imprinting can cause rejection syndrome, neural destabilization, hallucinations, in worst cases, systemic collapse. You mean it could kill you? She didn't answer. William clenched his fists. Then we stall. We block the override. We say the systems are misreading vitals. Anything. You'd lie to command for me? He looked her in the eyes. I'd lie to anyone if it meant keeping you safe, The weight of his words hit her harder than she expected. Something inside her shifted, not just the biological bond, but something softer, something chosen. She moved closer without realizing it, her hands finding the edges of his sleeves as if to anchor herself. "You're the only one who's made this feel like anything other than a disaster," she said. "I don't want to be your emergency," he replied, voice quiet. "I want to be your choice." For a long moment, she simply looked at him. Then, almost hesitantly, she pressed her forehead against his chest. The contact was light, tentative. He didn't move. Her body settled almost instantly, her breathing evened, her skin dimmed to a soft, steady glow. "I don't understand how," she whispered, "but I trust you." He rested his hand gently on her back. "Then let's find a way to turn this from a mistake into something worth holding on to." Outside the lab, unseen by them both, the incoming override signal blinked red once, then quietly disappeared from the screen. The lab's interior was eerily quiet now. The emergency lights had dimmed to a dull glow, casting muted shadows across the equipment. The stillness felt unnatural, like the eye of a storm that hadn't passed yet. Ruby stood near the sealed door, her gaze fixed on the blinking control panel as if waiting for something to break through. William was still beside her, his hand steady on her back, the contact subtle but grounding. The way her body had responded to that single touch hadn't faded. If anything, it had deepened the connection. She could sense him, even when he didn't speak, his quiet concern, his protective resolve, the pulse of heat that lingered between them. "They stopped the override," Ruby murmured, voice barely above a whisper. "That's not normal protocol." He leaned forward, checking the system logs. "No alert sent. No confirmation required. It's like someone canceled the extraction quietly." Someone high-ranking must have intervened. His jaw tightened. "Or someone wants to see what happens. Next." Ruby took a step back, pacing slowly as if movement could ease the pressure coiling inside her. "The Council doesn't ignore anomalies like this. If the override was shut down, they're watching through another channel, probably monitoring us remotely." William scanned the perimeter sensors, noting the subtle fluctuations. "They're not just watching. They've redirected surveillance drones. Which means this is no longer just a containment issue," Ruby said, crossing her arms tightly over her chest. "This is political now." He turned toward her. "Because of the bond? Because I'm the only Traxian on this station, and now I'm imprinted to a human. That sets off alarms in every diplomatic database." William paced the room once, then stopped. "If the Council finds out the bond is real, what will they do?" Ruby hesitated. "Best case, separate us, observe the effects. Worst case, they classify it as a biological security breach, containment, study, possible reassignment to interspecies medical testing." He stared at her, disbelief flickering in his eyes. "They'd turn us into experiments." "They have before," she said softly. "When something new threatens balance, they control it. That's how they keep peace, through management." William leaned against the wall, his hands clenched. "So what do we do?" "We need to hide the signs," she said, stepping closer. "Conceal the intensity of the imprint, suppress my vitals, block the sensory markers, and convince them we've resolved the anomaly." He raised an eyebrow. "Can you do that?" "I can try," she said, brushing her hair back. "But I'll need your help." He nodded without hesitation. "Anything." She took a deep breath and opened a hidden compartment in the wall behind the main console. From within it, she pulled out a sleek, oval device that shimmered faintly in her hand. "This is a neurostatic dampener," she explained. "It can temporarily suppress neural bonds, masking physiological responses." He looked at it carefully. "Will it hurt you?" "Not if calibrated correctly. But I'll need you to sync it." "Why me?" "You're the anchor point. The system has to map its signal through your neural patterns. Otherwise, it won't recognize the bond. William stepped forward, holding out his hand. Let's do it. Ruby hesitated only briefly, then handed it to him. He powered it up, and a pale blue light pulsed across its surface. She took his other hand in hers, placing his palm gently against her temple. Her skin was warm beneath his touch, and the glowing symbols across her body flared gently at the contact. You have to think about me, she said, closing her eyes. Focus on the imprint. Picture the moment it started. When the mist touched me. When you saw the change. His breathing slowed. His thoughts sharpened. He remembered the way her eyes had widened, the way her skin shimmered with sudden energy. The way she'd looked at him, not with fear, but with something unspoken. The device beeped, locking onto the shared memory. Her body tensed briefly, then relaxed as the blue light swept over both of them. The bond didn't disappear, but its pressure softened, dimmed like a light switch to low. Ruby opened her eyes slowly. That should mask the connection for a few hours. He kept his hand against her cheek a second longer, reluctant to break contact. How do you feel? Dim, she said. As if part of me went silent. I'm still here, he whispered. I know, she replied, voice steady. But the link was becoming comforting. There was a beat of silence. Then the outer lab door chimed, followed by a crisp announcement. Council specialist en route. Please prepare for debriefing. Ruby stiffened. That was fast. They were already waiting, William muttered. This was just their excuse to step in. We need to stay calm, she said, moving quickly to the terminal. Stick to the truth, but not all of it. Say the mist triggered a false reaction. We resolved it through recalibration. Keep it technical. And if they scan us? We have a few hours of cover. They won't detect the bond, unless we slip. William looked her in the eyes. We won't. The door slid open, and a tall figure entered. Pale skin, silver-trimmed uniform, and unreadable expression. Specialist Varen, Commander Cade, the man said coolly. We understand there was an incident with a containment class device. Ruby stood straighter. Yes, sir. The regulator malfunctioned. But we've stabilized the reaction. He raised an eyebrow. And the imprint signature? Dissipated, she said evenly. Residual effects have been neutralized. The specialist's eyes narrowed as he stepped closer. We'll verify. That shortly. William felt Ruby's hand brush his, barely a whisper of touch. Her skin didn't glow, her breathing was controlled, and her gaze never flinched. She was flawless. But beneath the silence, something else stirred. Something deeper. The imprint wasn't gone, it was just waiting. The council specialist circled the lab like a predator in no rush to pounce. His eyes scanned every console, every readout, every flicker on the interface. Ruby remained composed, her back straight, her pulse even. The neurostatic dampener still held, keeping her bond with William just beneath the surface, invisible but alive. William stayed silent, hands clasped behind him, his stance disciplined. He didn't trust the man, and he didn't need to. His job now was simple: protect Ruby. Even if that meant with silence, the specialist paused near the biometric console. Curious, the hormonal surge was significantly higher than any standard malfunction would produce. Ruby responded calmly. The initial spike was amplified by environmental feedback, temperature fluctuation, and proximity exposure. Once those variables were controlled, the readings returned to baseline. The man turned to face her. And yet, your system flagged imprint markers. That's not common in isolated lab incidents. She met his gaze without blinking. The equipment falsely registered sympathetic resonance. A misinterpretation, not a biological event. His attention shifted to William. And you? What was your role in all this? Support, William said simply. I was asked to assist with recalibration. I followed instructions. The man's gaze lingered on him a moment longer than necessary. Then he nodded and stepped back. I see no present signs of destabilization. You've both done well containing the situation. The Council may request a full data audit, but for now, the investigation is closed. Ruby inclined her head. Understood. Without another word, the specialist exited the lab. The door sealed behind him with a quiet hiss, leaving the room, colder than it had been. Ruby released a long breath, her hands finally unclenching at her sides. He didn't believe me. William nodded. No, but he couldn't prove anything. They stood still for a moment, the false calm of the dampener still suppressing the hum that had become familiar. The silence now felt sterile, empty. Ruby crossed the room to the terminal and deactivated the neurostatic field. The blue shimmer faded instantly. A wave of warmth swept through her chest as if a heartbeat had returned after too long in silence. William exhaled like he'd been holding something in his lungs for too long. I didn't realize how quiet it had made everything. I did, she said softly, stepping toward him. The moment it came back, I felt whole again. He searched her expression, unsure if she meant the bond or something else. Maybe both. Is it still changing you? He asked. It's not changing, she replied. It's settling, adapting to include you. He swallowed once. What does that mean for us? Ruby hesitated. Then she reached for his hand, interlacing her fingers with his. Her skin glowed faintly again, but not in alarm. It shimmered, with peace. It means I want this, she said. Not because I was imprinted or programmed. Because in the quiet, when it was gone, I missed you. He looked down at their joined hands, then back up. So it's real. She smiled slightly. It's ours. His hand tightened in hers, grounding them both. What happens now? We tell them what they want to hear, she said. That it was an anomaly, that it's done. But between us, we move forward. He grinned. Together? Her smile deepened. Yes. They stood there, surrounded by silent monitors and blinking lights. No alarms, no threats. Just the slow return of warmth between them. Later, in the corridor outside the lab, they walked side by side toward the crew quarters. The station had returned to its usual rhythm, unaware or pretending not to notice. The subtle shift in their pace, the way their shoulders occasionally brushed. As they reached the residential wing, Ruby slowed. They'll keep watching us. I know. We'll have to pretend we're distant in public. I can handle that, he said, smirking. But only if I get all the closeness in private. She gave him a sideways look, but her cheeks colored. You're impossible. I'm yours, he replied. Her steps paused. His words hit harder than he realized. She turned to face him fully, her fingers brushing his again. Say that again. He leaned closer, voice lower but certain. I'm yours. Her heart skipped, not from biology, but from something even older than instinct. Ruby stepped closer and kissed him, not like a moment stolen, not like something fragile, but like a promise. When they finally parted, her hand still rested against his chest, and her skin glowed brighter than ever before. He smiled. So, your quarters. She nodded. Only if you're prepared for what that means. He gave her a look that matched the gravity in her tone. I wasn't prepared for any of this, still wouldn't trade a second of it. She opened the door. He stepped through. Behind them, the corridor dimmed, and the hum of the station faded into silence. The bond wasn't visible. It didn't glow on any screen. But in every breath they shared, in every heartbeat that aligned without effort, it thrived. Neither of them needed confirmation from a device anymore. They had each other, and that was enough.